Hello everyone, I'm Landon and I'm the DM, and this is a product highlight of several products for Grim Hollow by Ghostfire Gaming. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but I want to do more of these, as well as other kinds of videos in the future. If you like this kind of video, definitely make it known by sounding off in the comments and giving the video a like. I have here Grim Hollow, the campaign guide, Grim Hollow, the player's guide, Grim Hollow, the Monster Grimoire, Grim Hollow, Lairs of Etharis, Martial Classes Minis, Spellcaster Classes Minis, Transformation Minis, Monsters of Etharis, Battlemaps of Etharis, Lairs of Etharis Map Pack, Spells and Abilities Deck, the Monsters of Etharis card decks, this Grim Hollow binder, 2 posters, and stickers. I'm not being paid in any way to review these things by the fine people at Ghostfire Gaming. My thoughts and opinions are my own. I generally won't be reviewing things unless overall I am positive about the product. I will have links in the description and in the pinned comment where you can purchase these things. No more waiting, let's get into it. The cover of the campaign guide is exactly what you would expect for a setting called Grim Hollow. Dark, edgy, I like it. You can probably guess that it's going to be the general vibe. Really nice continent map on the inside cover showing all the places. The first chapter gives us an overview of the overall look and feel of the world of Grim Hollow. The oppressive, sinister dark, a land full of danger greater than your average fantasy setting, with a pantheon of deities destroyed, and what remains of the divine are the second in command, with many diseases but none so more feared than the weeping pox. Superstitions and fear lead to a mistrust of the arcane where it is not outright persecuted. But not everything is without hope in Etharis, and heroic deeds are not pointless. Races of Etharis tells us how the various races, or species to use the new term, fit into the Grim Hollow setting, their general information and relations. Listed are humans, elves, dwarves, half-orc, half-elves, dragonborn, gnomes, halflings. And even if a race isn't listed here, it doesn't mean you can't include it at your table with your players. Chapter 3, we have character options, starting off with advanced weapons. These are weapons that require more specialized training and are not available at the earliest levels. A character has to be level 3 or above and have proficiency with all martial weapons to proficiently use the advanced weapons. I'm going to highlight just one of the weapons here, the Claymore, but there are a total of 9 advanced weapons with a cost of 500 gold. The Claymore deals 2d6 slashing damage. Like a greatsword, it is heavy and two-handed, and it has the advanced property Brutal. A brutal weapon adds an additional weapon die to the damage when you score a critical hit. Next we have 11 feats. I'll go over just one I thought was pretty interesting. Witch Hunter. You have honed and perfected your skills fighting against spellcasters. Whenever you are targeted by a hostile creature's spell that isn't an area effect, you make a wisdom saving throw against their spell save DC. If you save, they have to pick a new target or they lose the spell. Moreover, if you hit a spellcaster with a melee attack, they are slowed down by 10 feet until your next turn. And you have advantage against being cursed. Next are 10 new spells. I want to go over Mirror Spell, a 3rd level abjuration spell, a reaction which you do when you see a creature casting a spell within 60 feet of you. It has verbal and somatic components and is instantaneous. You can try and copy a spell that is 3rd level or lower. If the spell is 2nd level or lower, it's automatically copied. Otherwise, there must be a successful check with your spellcasting modifier, with a DC of 10 plus the spell's level. The spell is then cast at the lowest level it can be, and you choose new targets. Now, you can't copy your own spell, and the spell has to come from a creature. You are the original caster of the copied spell, so it uses your spellcasting modifier and spell save DC if needed. You can upcast the spell. You can attempt to copy a spell using the level that you cast Mirror Spell at or lower. This section also has 8 curse spells for bards, clerics, druids, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards. Curses are like regular spells but with some unique characteristics. They all require components with specific connections to the target, as well as a Shadow Steel object, a specialized material designed for holding dark magic. The DC of the curse is adjusted by the curse strength table, shown here, both how well you know the target and their offense. Each curse has triggering events that begin the effects. Curses have 3 stages and a final culmination. At dawn, an escalation check is made by the target to avoid progressing the curse. And these curses aren't removed by a simple remove curse. You also need specific cure components. Here's the curse of Uncontrollable Wrath. A 6th level enchantment curse spell takes 1 hour to cast. Verbal, semantic, and material components, all of which are consumed. A weapon that belonged to the target, a severed hand, and a Shadow Steel knife worth at least 1,000 gold. The target will make a wisdom save. If they succeed, they know someone tried to curse them. Otherwise, they remain unaware. And the next time they wield a weapon or a spell focus, an old wound reopens. fights. In Stage 1, they become easily aggressive. In Stage 2, they become obsessed with violence and solo combat. They cannot benefit from spells or abilities of allies. In Stage 3, the bloodlust is insatiable. They cannot complete long rests. In the culmination, they twist and deform into an avatar of slaughter. If they were a PC, now they're an NPC. A short Chapter 4 is variant mechanics, with some optional rules that may help you with the theme and feel of dark fantasy. Stabilization, concentration checks, bleeding, dazed, not the one D&D playtest condition, and species proficiencies. Moving along to the next chapter, we have transformations. These allow players to become dark beasts of the night, and increase in power while gaining flaws. Transformations can be difficult to remove, much like the curses of Grim Hollow. I'm going to show each transformation and their progression chart, but I'll leave it up to you to discover the details. Aberrant Horror, their progression, boons and flaws. The Fiend, the Fiend's progressions, boons and flaws. The Lich, have you ever wanted to be a Lich? Here are their boons and flaws. A Lycanthrope, and our furry friends' boons and flaws. This one's a little different, the Seraph, with its accompanying boons and flaws. Vampire, bring out your inner Lord Briarwood, but mind the boons and flaws. These aren't regular backgrounds, they are advanced backgrounds. Advanced backgrounds add a little more oomph to backgrounds, hopefully making them have more of an impact on your average session. Advanced backgrounds involve choosing a background and then a profession within that background. This profession gives you a profession ability, something you're quite masterful at due to the sheer hours of practice. You get to add a profession die based on your rank to checks related to your profession. You get a skill proficiency and equipment in addition to those from your background. Different ranks come with new holdings, assets, resources, or advantages, with each rank telling you how to progress to the next. You also get to select a talent, and more when you rank up, which allow you to add your profession die to unique situations. Let's go through one. Criminal gets you proficiency in one of acrobatics, athletics, deception, intimidation, sleight of hand, stealth. You know Thieves can't? Proficient with thieves tools? You get some thieves tools, some fake currency, some dark common clothes with a hood, and 15 gold. Let's choose burglar as our profession. It gives us perception as a skill, a grappling hook and rope, kid skin gloves, glass cutter, and a vial of flour. We gain the surveillance ability. Upon spending an hour observing it and successfully completing a medium DC wisdom perception check, you can map the general layout of a building. This includes the guards' routes and rotation times, building entrances and exits, and the potential locations of valuables. As rank 1 or Snatcher, we have these holdings: safe house in a poor district to store goods or an emergency lodging. We have blueprints to a grand estate including secret entrances and passageways. If we want to become a burglar specialist, we would have to rob a well-to-do store in a reputable district, gaining notoriety and a big payday. And for a challenge, I choose Nimble Fingers to allow us to add our profession die to our Dexterity Thieves Tools checks to pick a lock. Now let's briefly go over the major regions in Etharis. There may be some light spoilers for each region. The Baroque Empire. Nestled in the northern region of Arathis, the Baroque Empire presides over its domain like an old lion ravaged by illness. Once a beacon for grand civilization everywhere, now it is a shattered nation, a nest of corrupt nobility seeking to revive old glories, lurking monsters that prey on the unwary, and a desperate common folk trying to survive both, though it is still viewed by most of its neighbors as the political, military, and economic superpower of Arathis. Those within the Baroque Empire live each day with the sense that the end is near, whether that end comes by war, cults of strange gods, rebellion, economic collapse, or the unworldly threat of the beast. The empire is seeing its last days. The Baroque Empire once covered the largest expanse of land of any nation in Arathis. Temperate forests abound at the northern edge, but dwindle the further one travels south as logging camps struggle to keep up with the Empire's demand for lumber. The foothills of the Grey Spine mountain range provide a source of iron and precious gems. A major volcano, Mount Vengeance, lies to the east of the Empire. The Baroque Empire has these 4 provinces: Abendland, Nordenland, Unterland, Rawland, the Astoyan Empire. Beyond the Grey Spine Peak lies a land shrouded in mist and shadow. The hearts of the Astoyan people are as cold and forbidding as the land they dwell in. The mages of Raven Court Sanctuary spin their nebulous plots. The vampire lords of the Crimson Court devise plans to engulf Arathis in a tide of undead, and the hidden denizens of the city below wait in the dark, hungry for the living. The lands east of the Grey Spine are a temperate, heavily forested region filled with hills and valleys. The further one travels east, the more the land flattens into rolling plains, dotted here and there by treacherous heaths and bogs. At the easternmost edge of of Astoya, the terrain breaks into jagged cliffs that border a restless, ice-filled sea. Further eastward across the water, a magical fog surrounds an island that few have ever laid eyes on. The Asturian Empire has these two provinces, Sama and Revo, the Charnault Kingdom, probably saying that wrong, hidden behind the magical forest of the Grove Maze. The Charnault Kingdom was once a land of honor and spirituality, with a deep connection to nature. Its countless rivers, lakes, and forests are regularly engulfed in a magical mist, which hides just as many castles and fortified villages. But now it is a land of broken vows, dark tales, and terrifying creatures lurking in the night. While the last elven city of Tol Laimil faces a coup by the Dark Elves, the king can barely hold the kingdom together as he seeks a cure for the curse cast on his daughter. The Charnault Kingdom is a beautiful land, nested between mountain, forest, and sea. To the northeast, a network of hills and groves called the Grove Maze cuts the kingdom off from the rest of Etharis, and in particular, the Baruch. To the northwest lies the base of the Rock Teeth Mountains, sheltering the huge elven city of Tol Laimil. The kingdom's southwest is dominated by a rocky ocean coast, inhabiting the Water Teeth, a dangerous chain of misty swamps and islands. The Valakan clans. Far to the north, at the frozen edge of the continent, lies Grarjord, the homeland of the Valakan. Each day, the hardy folk who dwell there face the dangers of the elements, the harshness of their faiths, and the numerous wars fought in the name of their beliefs. Life is short among the great clans. The 6 clans of the Valakan subsist in one of the harshest regions in the world. The southernmost part of Grarjord is still temperate, holding vast pine forests bounded by snow-covered mountains. Beyond the forest stretches the tundra known as the Pale March. Minor tribes survive here, hunting reindeer and other wild game. The Castanellan provinces. Scorched and hardened by the ruthless heat and wind, the people of Castanella are fierce, festive, and faithful. The southernmost part of Arathis offers both great opportunities and great challenges to those brave enough to seize them. Sailing, farming, mining, warring, nothing is outside the Castanellans' potential. Backed by the strength of their rigorous codes and passionate faith, the teachings of the divine arch-seraphs, especially Empyrus, arch-seraph of valor, have slowly but surely transformed the provinces into a militaristic theocracy with a fierce mistrust of spellcasters. But recently, new challenges to the sacred seraphic teachings have thrown the population into disarray. Conflict has escalated to the point where the Arcanist Inquisition has launched a crusade to burn every magical gifted being in the Castanellan provinces and beyond. The Castanellan provinces are a harsh land pincered by mountains and sea. It is a windswept peninsula bounded by sea to the east and west, with irregular mountain spine running from north to south. The west coast faces the Gulf of Lions, where trade routes lead towards the city-state of Morinsia and the Charnavot Kingdom. The east coast is wilder and less inhabited, exposed to the strong winds from the Great Eastern Sea. The city of Morinsia. I have to say, I like the art. In the center of the immense lagoon on the southern coast of the continent, the city-state of Morinsia occupies the central place between the Charnault Kingdom and the Castanella provinces. While visiting Morinsia, make sure to check out the Misty Reefs, the Arsenal of Morinsia, and the Water Strider Bridge. The city of Lysech, nested in the wide gulf called Bite Bay, north of the Charnault Kingdom. The city-state of Lysech, or is it Lysech, deploys a dense web of channels and ditches in a constant fight against the sea. On the city's eastern side, an impressive fortification system relying on water once protected the city against the Baroque Empire's ambitions. On the west side, a giant harbor and arsenal face the sea. While visiting this city, make sure to check out the Eye of the Sea, the High Belfry, and the Froth Church. Wherever there is an ounce of power to be had, there is guaranteed to be a faction built around it. Godwick Fulminster. Etharis Historian. There may be some light spoilers for the 5 major factions of Etharis. The Thaumaturge. We who shape magic, shape the world. Headquartered in a collectively maintained extraplanar space, the Grand Thaumatic Order of the Thurgists, or the Thaumaturge, is a loose confederation of archmages whose existence has been an open secret for several decades. The common folk regard them as a fairy tale, as the Thaumaturge spends much of its resources keeping their existence secret. The Company of Free Swords. Blood and honor, strength in steel. Headquarters in Voros. If one needs a war won, a powerful monster removed, or a dirty job completed, the Company of Free Swords is the top mercenary group to call, assuming you have the coin. Despite its name, the company's services are far from free. The Augustine Trading Company. Success in all ventures and circumstances. Headquartered in Morinsia. Amidst the splendor of Morinsia sits an organization that guards its treasure as jealously as a dragon defends its hoard. The Augustine Trading Company is an ancient and venerable institution that maintains a presence in every country, from the southern reaches of Castanella to the misty city of Castelor. The Ebon Syndicate, the Night, is our kingdom. Headquartered in Eltenheim, it is said that beneath every unexplained success lies an undiscovered crime. If so, the crimes of the Ebon Syndicate number beyond reckoning. The Watchers of the Faithful, those of great faith, shall never perish, but will gain the keys to paradise. Headquartered in Toltum, after the loss of the gods, many of their good aligned clerics rallied to the remaining arch-seraphs in order to hold the fabric of their society together. Throwing their faith behind the seraphs, the major churches reformed into a large organization known as the Watchers of the Faithful. Composed of priests and paladins, the Watchers have dedicated themselves to preserving the old faiths in this new form. There's just a lot of good art here. Etharis is a godless plane, the gods having died in a struggle against one another. Now there are lesser divine beings, the arch-seraphs and arch-daemons. Let's go over one of each. Zabril, arch-seraph of truth, the Watcher, light-bearer, domains of knowledge, truth, wisdom, once the archivist of the knowledge god. Typharia, Zabril pursues the weaponization of truth. She is the patron of scholars, truth seekers, counter-spies, and those who seek to bring down conspiracies and oppressive regimes. Those who follow her often gain flashes of inspiration that lead them to discover secrets. Zabril appears as a robed figure whose face glows so brightly her features cannot be seen. She always carries a book that holds the names of every being in existence. Malakir, archdaemon of pride, the Velvet Queen, the Usurper, the Great Inversion, domains of tyranny, conquest, corruption, domination. The most powerful daemon, she promises power and guides tyrants and corrupt heroes. Malakir is a towering figure of ebony, undulating flesh, with an inverted triangular head and long arms that end in claws. Gross. This chapter contains 12 NPCs for various regions that you can use to sprinkle some personality into locations. There may be some spoilers for NPC interactions in this section. Here we have Alistair, the Mad Jester Gaunt, a human within the Castanella provinces, utterly mad, a feared and sometimes hired killer. Once part of the Arcanist Inquisition, he eventually snapped and destroyed his companions. There is a schism within the Mad Jester, one of death, chaos, and pain, the other of peace and kindness. To hire him is a gamble, as they become a victim to his rage if they find the wrong frame of mind. A Grim Hollow campaign is all about invoking the right feelings and tone for your players. These are some things that definitely should be considered, as well as some tools to help you achieve the style you want. Here they talk of the different themes or genres of dark fantasy drawn on by Grim Hollow. Grimdark, with its flawed characters that struggle with impossible moral choices. Horror, with its delicate balance of tension, atmosphere, and imagery to invoke terror, dread, or revulsion. Dark fairy tales, with a lean towards fantasy, where things appear normal, but the truth is more unsettling. Sword and sorcery, with its immoral, action-focused perspective on a fantastical setting. Conflicts and their resolutions drive dark fantasy. 3 areas or sources of conflict are character, party, and regional. One should consider the pacing of level progression. Dark fantasy should be challenging, and sometimes you need to scale up an encounter to increase that difficulty. Sometimes you need a legendary solo monster, so they provide templates to amp up a standard monster into something more dangerous. Real consequences can bring that dark fantasy tone with grievous wounds. Sometimes you need contraband, items not available to those strictly within the law. There are many diseases, poxes, and sicknesses to use. Chapter 12 gives us 3 adventures to inspire the DMs out there. I will summarize some information. Tavern of the Lost for 4 level 6 characters. Travel is dangerous. Less traveled paths feel even grizzled mercenaries with fear. Roadside inns are the only safe haven, and often for a steep price. The Tavern of the Lost is one such, but it seems to move, and none seeking it can find it, so the rumors say. Those who enter the glow of the hearth are never seen again as the tavern, and all vanish in the morning. Once inside, no 2 patrons can kill each other, as wounds heal and limbs reattach. The tavern and other creatures within are not bound by these rules. Facets of darkness. In the district called the Pit in Runeheim, in South Kandar, the violence, corruption, and despair are blossoming into an overwhelming darkness. Wicked, underhanded deeds sweep up many unsuspecting. The Blood Knight and the 5 Relics. There are countless forms of evil in Etharis. The Charnald Kingdom may seem removed from the darkness, but it harbors its own share of horrors. Some curses even the dead can't escape. Next features stat blocks of gruesome creature culmination combinations to many of the curses. They are definitely worth checking out. Here is the avatar of Slaughter. The art is quite flavorful and ferocious. A large fiend with a big bag of hit points, a middle-high AC, and a very fast 60-foot speed. Strength and constitution are its high stats, the others being quite average or even low, not very wise or charismatic, with resistance to cold, fire, lightning, and non-magical attacks from unsilvered weapons. Straight immunity to poison damage, charmed, frightened, and the poison condition. The avatar makes 4 attacks. Pretty simple, 1 gore, 3 fist attacks. Blood Frenzy can give it advantage against hurt creatures. It has a charge ability to do extra damage and knock things prone. If you kill it, the only way to stop it from returning to life is a wish spell, or to imprison its spirit in a mundane weapon. Magic resistance and the ability to make large standing leaps rounds out its abilities. I like it. I actually really like this campaign guide. I think it's an excellent buy, got a lot of useful information, and honestly seems like a fun campaign setting to run. Fun if you like the grim dark sort of thing. Next up, Grim Hollow the Player's Guide. I love this art. Look at this bard. Chapter 1 briefly goes over a few things we saw from the campaign guide about playing in a dark fantasy, some things about the world, kind of catching you up to speed, so if you're playing here, you know what to kind of expect, how to build your character for this place. So chapter 2 brings us 6 new races, or species, for Etharis. First is the Wexelkind, the Laneshee, the Ogresh, the Downcast, Dreamers, and the Disembodied. The Disembodied are sort of trapped between worlds. For your ability score, your intelligence score increases by 2, dexterity by 1, they mature much slower, and their life expectancy is much higher, none having passed away from old age so far. Your size is that of whatever your origin species was. Walking speed is 30 feet. They have Fade Away, which on your turn as an action, you can fade into the ethereal plane. While faded away, can't interact with the material plane, and effects on the material plane can't interact with you, such as spells, creatures, but you can move and hear as normal and see everything in shades of gray. It lasts for a minute, or until you use a bonus action to end it, and when it ends, you reappear in the closest occupied space you have disappeared from. Once you use it, can't use it until you complete a long rest. As a planar outcast, you cast the Featherfall spell once per day, targeting yourself. At 3rd level, you have the Blur spell once per day, and at 5th level, you gain the Blink spell once per day, with intelligence as your spellcasting ability for those spells. You get proficiency in Arcana skill, and you can read and write 2 languages of your choice. Chapter 3 goes into some more detail about the various lands in Etharis, a lot of information we had in the campaign guide, but it does give us a little more that will be very useful for players who want to feel like they're from a place. I particularly like this list of laws, definitely worth checking out to see where you want to have your character from. This also goes into what languages are used in Etharis. There's no common tongue, although there are the species languages. Chapter 4 goes into more about magic in Etharis, on the magical theory, which if you're playing a spellcaster would be really kind of interesting to think about what your character might know about the nature of magic itself, as well as various colleges or places of learning where you might study for such magic. Also within chapter 4, more talk of the divine, the godlessness, archseraphs and daemons, also going into the nature magic. Chapter 5, new subclasses. I love player options. Player's Guide gives us 24 subclasses, 2 for each of the base classes. First up, Barbarian, and I'll go in depth on this one and then just list out the others. We have Path of the Fractured. I think this one's pretty interesting. I want to build a character like this. Face of Rage. At 3rd level, when you enter a rage, your features distort and your body swells such that your appearance changes completely. Creatures who don't witness your transformation, or have not witnessed it in the past, don't recognize you. In addition, while raging, you gain following benefits if you're not wearing heavy armor. You can roll a 1d8 in place of normal damage of your unarmed strikes, and your unarmed strikes count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. If you use the attack action to make an unarmed strike and you're not wearing a shield, you can make another one as a bonus action, and you count as 1 size larger when determining who you can target with grappling, and your reach with unarmed attacks increases by 10 feet. With Mask of Civility, at 3rd level, you gain proficiency with one of the following skills: Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, Persuasion, or Religion. In addition, you gain proficiency with one of the artisan tools of your choice, or you learn to read, speak, and write a language of your choice. Brains and Brawn. At 6th level, while you're not raging, you have resistance to psychic damage. While you are raging, you have resistance to all damage type except psychic damage. Cunning and Brutal. At 10th level, while you're not raging, you can take a bonus action on each of your turns to take the Disengage or Help action. While you are raging, your unarmed strikes score a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20, better half. At 14th level, if you would take damage that would reduce you to 0 hit points, you can use your reaction to drop to 1 hit point instead and gain temporary hit points equal to half of your maximum hit points. In addition, if you were raging, your rage ends. If you weren't raging, you enter a rage, even if you have no remaining uses. You'll lose all the temporary hit points after 1 minute. Once Once you use the feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Also for the Barbarian, Path of the Primal Spirit. For Bard, we have College of Adventurers and College of Requiems. Cleric brings the Eldritch domain and the Inquisition domain. Druid, we have the Circle of Blood and the Circle of Mutation. Fighter gives us the Bulwark Warrior and the Living Crucible. For monks, we have the Way of the Leaden Crown and the Way of Pride. Paladins, Oath of Pestilence and the Oath of Zeal. Ranger, we get Green Reaper and Vermin Lord. For Rogue, we have Highway Rider and Misfortune Bringer. Sorceress Origin of Haunted and Wretched Bloodline. For a Warlock, you have the Patron of the First Vampire and the Parasite. Wizard has the Arcane Tradition of Plague Doctor and the School of Sangromancy, Blood Magic. Chapter 6 gives us some more options for transformations. For Aberrant Horror, we gain new optional boons of Unearthly Senses, Shifting Form, Amorphous Flesh. The Fiend, we have the Brand of the Slaver's Leash, Infernal Subcontractor, and Loophole. For a Lich, the Phylactery Bond, the Enhanced Phylactery, and Soul Reflection. Lycanthrope, we have Heart of the Wild, Call of the Pack, and Blood Frenzy. Seraph, Divine Protection, Holy Bulwark, and Aura of Celestial Resilience. Vampire, Night Stalker, Improved Shape Changer, and Innate Sangromancy. We also have a few new transformations. The Fae, the Primordial, Spectre. In Chapter 7, we get some more backgrounds, including some normal backgrounds as well as some more advanced ones. I'm not going to go over all of those. Feel free to check them out yourself. Chapter 8 is pretty interesting. It's a list of archetypes, but character archetypes for role-playing. These can help you determine what sort of character you have and what your goal is. Important information to know. So let's roll percentile. We got 90, which gives us the Scoundrel, or the variant Miscreant. So it fits a character who exists outside the norms and doesn't like conventional rules or traditions. Most Scoundrels also have something to prove. They want to be lauded or approved by the right people. Chapter 9, we got the spellbook. 42 new spells. From what it says here, I've chosen Sense Lifeblood, a 2nd level divination sangromancy spell. Casting time of a bonus action, range of self, somatic components, concentration up to a minute. As part of casting the spell, you must expend 2 hit dice or the spell fails. You can sense the lifeblood flowing within creatures you can see. For the duration, you can sense whether and how 2 or more creatures you can see are related biologically. In addition, you know whether the creature's current hit points are equal to or below half their maximum hit points. And when you deal damage to such a creature, you roll 2 additional dice to deal bonus damage. The dice rolled are the same as the 2 you expended to cast the spell. And you can upcast this spell with a 4th or 5th level spell. You can maintain concentration on the spell for up to an hour. With a 6th level or higher, it increases to 8 hours. We have some more advanced weapons in the next chapter. I'm going to go over the Knightly Sword. Costing 700 gold, deals 1d8 slashing damage, weighs 3 pounds, has the properties Guard, Defending, Precise, and Versatile. Guard allows you to fight defensively, using a long haft or flat surface for parrying. So if you have a guard weapon, whenever a hostile creature moves within your reach, when you didn't move on your last turn, you can use your reaction to make a weapon attack with the guard weapon against that creature. If the attack hits, then it deals no damage, but the target immediately stops moving, and its speed becomes 0 until the end of its turn. So a defending weapon involves parrying. When you use a defending weapon, you can use a reaction to defend against a melee attack that hits you. If you do, you increase your AC by 1d4 against that attack, hopefully making it miss. And precise means when you attack, you score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20. So if a feature or item that you have increases the number you can roll for a critical hit, a precise weapon increases that range by 1. Any roll that's lower than your normal critical without this weapon must still actually hit. It's not an automatic hit. Very cool. Chapter 11 brings the magic items. A lot of these magic items have to do with boosting your transformations. The Seeing Glass, wondrous item, very rare. This ornate silver hand mirror is decorated with a motif of withered roses. The mirror's reflection always shows the true form of any creature viewed in it as if it were seen by the True Sight spell. You can see invisible creatures, the true form of shape changers, and the true faces of creatures attempting to disguise their hideous appearance. If the Seeing Glass is turned upon a vampire, the glass immediately shatters and is destroyed. Chapter 12 brings up some interesting optional rules, including some influence dice, ways for players and the GM to spend different pools of dice to create different effects. There are also some neutral abilities. Seems like an interesting concept to me. Chapter 13 goes over the importance of a session 0, especially when playing a Grim Hollow campaign, just to set expectations, to figure out what kind of themes you want, as well as boundaries that people may have. This includes various tools that you may be able to use at your table to make sure everyone's comfortable and having fun. And towards the end, we get this nice picture of various fashions within the different places. Very cool. So definitely this is quite a useful book. I think it's definitely worth picking up if you're going to be playing a Grim Hollow campaign. Your players will enjoy the extra options, extra spells. I really like like it. Definitely worth checking out. Good job, Ghostfire Gaming. On to the Monster Grimoire. And look at that art. Some fine looking monsters there. This guy has so many swords, 4 arms, 3 swords. What's not to love? And look at this little doggo here with that very long tail. Fantastic. So as one might expect with a monster book, this is full of monsters. I'm not going to read you every single monster, every single line of every single stat block, but I will show you some of my favorites and some things I really like about this book. As you can see from the table of contents, it's chock full of all sorts of baddies to throw at your party. Some cool things this book does is provide some salvage rules for harvesting components from monsters they defeat, as well as providing some lore to go along with the monsters. And like it says, there's over 400 in here. But remember, have fun with this. Let's take a look at the Anguisher. Some suffering never ends, coalesces into cold darkness, gaining alien sentience. So the psychic energy from those who die in extreme anguish might open a portal, allowing consciousness from the beyond the veil to meld with the psychic residue. The touch of an Anguisher, or its aura, will bring to mind your old wounds or tormentors. If you manage to defeat an Anguisher, you can salvage from it. If you happen to be proficient with alchemist supplies, can refine and dehydrate the goo left behind. In a process, takes a day of work and an intelligence or wisdom check, DC 10. If they succeed, they create Dust of Disappearance. Here we see some lore that the players can learn about it at various DCs and checks. So it's a medium-sized aberration, chaotic evil, has a fairly low armor class of 13, 65 hit points, a speed of 30. Charisma, constitution, and dexterity appear to be its highest stats, but it's not very strong or intelligent. It's resistant to psychic damage, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. It's immune to being exhausted, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, prone, restrained, and unconscious. Dark vision out to 60 feet. It understands all languages, but cannot speak. It does have telepathy for 60 feet. It's a challenge rating 4. Since it's amorphous, it can move through a space an inch wide without squeezing. Continued suffering. A creature that has an intelligence score of 4 or higher dies from the Anguisher's attacks, spawns a new Anguisher in 3 days. Any effect that prevents the body from becoming undead also prevents the emergence of a new Anguisher. Frightening advantage. The Anguisher has advantage on attack rolls against creatures that are frightened. Against such targets, the Anguisher scores a critical hit on a roll of 18 to 20. It has multi-attack and make 2 Anguish attacks. Its melee or ranged spell attack, +5 to hit, a reach of 5 feet or 60-foot range. One creature. On a hit, it does 3d6 plus 3 psychic damage, and the target is frightened of the Anguisher and must use its reaction to move its speed away by the safest route possible. Movement used during this reaction can't be used during the target's turn. Interesting. It also has Harrow, recharge 6. Each creature of the Anguisher's choice within 60 feet and aware of the Anguisher must make a DC 13 wisdom saving throw. On a failure, they take 17 or 5d6 psychic damage and becomes frightened for 1 minute. If the save succeeds, the creature takes half the damage and isn't frightened. A frightened creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending on that save. Invisibility. The Anguisher magically turns invisible until it attacks or its concentration ends, as if concentrating on a spell. Let's look at another interesting creature, the Magebane Ooze. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction by an angry wizard. Magebane Ooze were actually created by an irritable wizard, trying to unleash them on his rivals. Unfortunately, his creations got loose and he became their first victim. These ooze devour magic, and because they were made to attack wizards, they're actually quite intelligent creatures, and tend to set traps and strategize. They also tend to be used by the Arcanist Inquisition. These oozes are quite dangerous. If you do manage to defeat one, there is still some danger in its corpse. Someone who makes a successful DC 15 Dexterity Sleight of Hand check can carefully collect the remaining potent ooze into a vial, which can be turned into a Magebane Bomb. Making the item requires a proficient Arcanist to spend 4 hours, use 100 gold of components, and succeed on a DC 15 Intelligence Arcana check. So they are a large ooze creature, unaligned. They have an armor class of 7, 85 hit points, 20 walking speed, 20 foot climb, 14 strength, 5 dex, 16 con, 10 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 1 charisma. They are proficient in perception and stealth. They resist acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, radiant, and thunder damage. They are immune to force damage. They are immune to blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, prone. They blinds out for 60 feet and are blind beyond that. They cannot speak. They are challenge rating 6. They're amorphous, so they can go through a narrow passage of an inch wide. Corrode magic. Any magical weapon that hits the ooze has some of its magic stripped away. After dealing damage, the weapon takes an accumulative -1 penalty to the attack and damage rolls. If the penalty reaches -3, the weapon permanently becomes a mundane version of the weapon type. A weapon affected by this magical draining reduces the penalty by 1 at the end of each long rest. Magic ammunition that hits the ooze becomes mundane immediately after dealing damage. False appearance, so while it remains motionless, it is indistinguishable from an oily pool or wet rock. The The ooze has a pseudopod, melee weapon attack, +5 to hit, 5 reach, 1 target, does 5 or 1d6 plus 2 bludgeoning damage, plus 36 for 8d8 force damage. In addition, magical armor worn by the target begins to be stripped of its power and take a cumulative -1 penalty to AC it offers. If the penalty reaches -3, the armor permanently becomes a mundane version of that armor. Armor affected by this magical draining reduces the penalty by 1 at the end of each long rest. As a reaction, it feeds. When an ooze takes damage from a spell attack, it can reduce that damage to 0. Instead regains hit points equal to the damage that was originally dealt. Nasty. Looking at the nether spider. As the venom of the large black and red spider acts, the victim disintegrates into smoking ashes. Nether spider is a large demon, neutral evil. It's a mix of black and fiery red, large spiders that glow with infernal heat. Fiends spawn nether spiders in the netherworld to patrol and defend the strongholds. They slip into Etharis to hunt for fresh prey, which they reduce to ashy sludge to drink. Yuck. The webs of a nether spider are resistant to flame. They absorb light, making nether spiders' lairs extremely dark. If you manage to kill one, anyone who has proficiency with alchemist supplies or cooked utensils can prepare the venom glands of a nether spider with spices worth 10 gold to create a soup equivalent to 2 flasks of alchemist's fire. Doing so requires 4 hours of work and a successful DC 13 intelligence or wisdom check. Failure by 5 or more on this check causes the soup to ignite before it can be bottled. Challenge rating of 3, AC is 14, 67 hit points, 30 speed, 30 climb, 15 strength, 17 dex, 14 con, 3 intelligence, 12 wisdom, 6 charisma. Is proficient in stealth, resistant to fire, blind sight for 30 feet, dark vision out to 60, it understands infernal but can't speak, devil's sight, can see in magical darkness, spider climb, it can climb difficult terrain, even upside down without needing to make an ability check, web sense, when in contact with the web, it knows the exact location of any creature in the same web, it also can walk on those webs freely. It has 2 actions, bite, a melee weapon attack, +5 to hit, 5 reach, 1 creature, on a hit it does 10 or 2d6 plus 3 piercing damage, and the target must make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, taking 2d6 fire and 2d8 poison damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. If damage from this fiery poison reduces the target to 0 hit points, the target dies, and the body is reduced to hot, ashy sludge that powders to ash as it cools. What a way to go. Web. Recharge 5 or 6, ranged weapon attack, +5 to hit, 30-60 range, 1 creature, the target is grappled by webbing, escape with a DC 12, and restrained while grappled. In that way, the web creates a magical darkness and difficult terrain in a 5-foot square for 1 minute, even if it misses the target. The darkness dispels magical light created by a spell of 2nd or lower level. The webbing has AC 10 with 10 hit points, vulnerability to cold damage, immunity to bludgeoning, fire, poison, and psychic damage. This is an entire chapter devoted to vampires, definitely worth checking out. It's got a lot of information, especially if you're going to have a campaign based around a vampire, like Strahd for instance. It can sometimes be challenging to play intelligent monsters as a GM. In combat, you want them to act smart with nice tactics and be engaging and fun. Chapter 3 covers this topic of different ways of thinking of the goals of this intelligent monster and how to achieve those goals, overall how to use their various options to give the sense that this is a highly intelligent monster and not just another sack of hit points. Chapter 4 covers some magic items and salvage, providing rules for both salvage and crafting. Taking a look at that Magebane bomb from earlier, it's a wondrous item, rare. This bubbling liquid is distilled from the remains of a Magebane ooze. You can throw the container at an enemy's weapon or armor or at a spellcaster. Make a simple ranged weapon attack. On a hit, creature takes 1d6 acid damage, and their weapon takes a -1 penalty to attack and damage, or their armor takes -1 penalty to the AC it offers until they complete a long rest. If the target is a spellcaster and you hit them with the bomb, for 1 minute they have a -1 penalty to hit with spell attacks, and the DCs of their saving throws against spells are decreased by 1. Chapter 5 gives us some options for using monsters as PCs. Definitely worth checking out. I think it would be fun to have a PC full of monsters in Grim Hollow. That would be fun. Overall, this is a really good monster book. I love the art in it. I think there's some really fun, flavorful monsters in here that will serve you well. And I like that it includes the lore and salvage. That's just a lot of stuff that just kind of takes off your shoulders as a DM. Being able to have a little bit of lore and be able to run with that, change it if you need to. You don't have to come up with every single thing about it. If you're going to run a campaign in Etharis, Etharis for Grim Hollow, definitely pick up the Monster Grimoire. Lairs of Etharis is a softcover book. It contains 20 monsters in their lairs, including maps, full situations. There is one lair for each level, 1 through 20. Definitely very useful for being able to insert these into your campaigns with Grim Hollow. Each of these scenarios are for 4 to 5 characters. Let's take a look at the level 10 lair for the Corpse Walker, the Sardonyx Necropolis. Below this city, at its height of glory and power, a necropolis was built to commemorate the city's honored war dead and the general who led their forces so valorously before falling in battle. Over time, as the city's power began to wane, the necropolis was sealed and forgotten. Now, as the city's future is uncertain, a young and ambitious necromancer rediscovered the Sardonyx Necropolis, so named for the rare and precious red and white marble and gemstones decorating the central mausoleum. In his quest to enhance his city's power, the necromancer began animating the dead, whose corpses have lain undisturbed for so long. Unfortunately for him, his power was insufficient to control them, and now the city above is attacked each night by bands of roving undead soldiers wearing, horrifically enough, the tattered remnants of the city's own uniform from its glory days. The necropolis is underground, where natural light never penetrates. While there are some torch sconces and braziers for oil spread throughout the area, none are stocked. Characters who put torches in the sconces or oil in the braziers and light them draw the undead like moths to a flame. What I really like about these lairs is just how everything's filled out. There's some loot, there's some things to investigate. You use unique monsters with some tactics, and you're able to just use this without a whole lot of prep. I definitely think this is worth picking up right alongside the Monster Grimoire. If you're going to be running a Grim Hollow campaign, you might as well. Let's open up some minis. Let's take a look at the Battlemaps. Let's check out the cards. Let's take a look at the binder. Poster time. Stickers. And that has been another product highlight, covering many of the Grim Hollow products from Ghostfire Gaming. It's always fun to take a look at some of the awesome products out there, especially the ones that came to us through Kickstarter, and just take a little deeper look at them. If you found something interesting in this video that you liked, or if you plan on trying Grim Hollow for yourself, please let me know in the comments. And help us out by giving the video a like, subscribe and use the notifications, do all the YouTube things that you know how to do, be good stewards of the content that you want to see. I plan to do more videos like this, as well as more Kickstarter highlights and other kinds of videos as well. Definitely check out the links that I provide for you in the description or in the pinned comment to buy these yourself and support Ghostfire Gaming. I'd like to thank you for staying to the end of the video. I'm Landon, I'm the DM, and I'll see you at the next highlight.